Hi everyone. Thanks Heather for that introduction. I'm Melissa Orobko, and I am actually originally from the other beautiful coast of Canada, from British Columbia. And today my story starts just over a year ago back on the West Coast. So I was skimming over water that was as smooth as glass in a boat that was small enough that I could lean over and dip my hand into the cool water. It was the crack of dawn, and the sun was radiating warmth on my upturned face. It was really cool and moist out. We were flying past little rocky islands that were dotting the sea around us, and we could see so many little fish jumping out of the water, landing with little splashes and leaving ripples behind. And we were there assessing the spread of diseases between salmon farms, or salmon aquaculture, and baby wild salmon that swim past these farms on their journey out to the ocean. But in that beautiful, tranquil setting, my mind was elsewhere. I was preoccupied. And not because I was dreaming or anything like that. I was actually thinking about math. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my relationship with math. The first thing I'll tell you is that it is a relationship filled with love. I really love math. I remember when I was a little girl sitting in math class, really enthusiastically and diligently working on all the assigned math problems. And you know the ones that they gave you that were optional? I did those too. And I love doing these problems because they involve logic. And that's really what math is. It's extended logic. If you have 3 apples and you buy 2 more apples, you now have 5 apples. And that's the only number of apples you can have. That's the answer. That's it. And that's basically math. It's that same logic of 3 plus 2 equals 5, just extended to some more complicated problems sometimes. So this love for math and logic brought me to study computing science in university. And there we learned how to program, and programming is basically getting computers to do your bidding. They do exactly what you tell them to do. And I would sit at a computer for 2 minutes writing code to get the computer to solve a problem that would normally take me 2 hours to do by hand. And this is really powerful. And it was also really satisfying, frankly, a little addicting. But this math and programming, although I loved it, it wasn't quite enough for me. I felt a little unfulfilled. I wanted to help change the world, and my passion was nature. I'd grown up in nature. I'd grown up camping, hiking, canoeing, water skiing, you name it. I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I really wanted to work on conserving nature. But in my training as a computer scientist, we were working on developing software. So I was training to learn how to work on things like the game Angry Birds, but I realized I really wanted to work on real birds. And so I switched out of computing science into environmental science to study issues in nature that I really cared about and was really passionate about. And I thought I was leaving this math and programming behind. Then I took an ecology class about a year after that switch, and it had a computer lab. And I remember thinking, I didn't really see the connection between computers and working on issues that I really cared about in nature. And I remember sitting there at the computer, looking at a screen that was full of numbers, and these numbers were telling us that spotted owls, which are really fluffy, adorable little owls. These owls were going extinct because their habitat was being logged. Their habitat was old growth forest. And there are only something like 30 left in all of Canada. And I remember sitting there and I had this moment of realization that the numbers that I was looking at on the screen, they weren't just numbers. These numbers represented real owls out in nature. And I cared about these owls. And in that lab, we learned how to study these numbers and use math and programming to try and figure out how to save these owls. And I was so happy. Like there was my chance to combine both of my loves for math and even programming and nature and work on issues that I really cared about. I knew that was possible. And that's what ultimately brought me to sitting in that little boat on the western coast of Canada with the wind whipping through my hair, where I was preoccupied with applying math to another important issue in nature, which is that the spread of disease between fish farms and wild fish can potentially lead to a trade-off between having more farmed fish to meet rising demand for fish and having healthy wild fish populations. And the really cool thing is that I was using math to study this trade-off. So I had equations that represented, or that were studying equations that were representing this trade-off, and I was using them to look at possible futures of fisheries and aquaculture. And I was sitting there, I was puzzling. I'd been puzzling over these equations for, so many days. I just couldn't get them to work. We all know math is hard sometimes. And yet, sitting there in that boat with real fish in front of me that my equations were representing, there's a salmon farm off in the distance. There were the little wild fish jumping in front of the boat. Being there helped me have a kind of like internal breakthrough that helped me figure out how to get those equations to work. And I was really happy. I let out a cry of delight, frantically scribbled the equations on my hand because that's all I had available at the time. You're in a boat. My coworkers were quite amused to watch this happen. And those equations helped me learn that the impacts of salmon farming, or fish farming in general, on wild fish should be kept small and managed to prevent possible declines in wild fisheries. So what I want to leave you with today is the idea that math is more than just numbers on a screen. It's more than just numbers on a page, more than abstract homework problems. It's built on the same logic that 3 plus 2 has to equal 5. The same logic that can be applied to both angry birds and real birds. And it's a really powerful tool to help guide us in making decisions about really important things in nature and in the world around us, like trying to figure out how to sustainably manage fisheries and aquaculture into the future. So thank you.